G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Based in New York, United States. Thanks for your time today, Chris.
Thanks for having me, Troy.
Let's start with how we know each other. Leo Bioslav from Oscar Hamilton put us in touch.
Yeah, that's right.
And tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
Sure. So I started this company called Novos or novoslabs.com, and we focus on human longevity. So essentially, what causes us to get older and how can we slow down that process to maximize our health span and our lifespan. And we do so by focusing on the biological causes of aging. So we work with scientists on our team from Harvard, MIT, and the Salk Institute that study the causes of aging. And then we create formulations, provide tests, and provide a lot of free knowledge for you to be able to slow down this process and be younger for longer, as we like to say.
Oh, fantastic. And how did you start out?
Well, this is an area that I've been passionate about for a long time. Since I was 12 years old, I started exercising. When I was 16 years old, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor and almost lost my life from that experience. So it planted a seed for me to really be interested in health from a biological perspective and wanting to avoid disease. And so over my lifetime, I've been an entrepreneur basically since I've been an adult. But in the back of my mind, I've always wanted to do something in this space. And it's been a hobby of mine to research and learn about biology and health and aging and so on. And so eventually I saw that the market was starting to warm up to this idea of slowing down aging and longevity, which is now becoming a very large market. So about 5 years ago, I decided that this is the space I'm passionate about and really wanted to start something in. And that's when I began on my journey to start Novos.
Yeah, great. I've heard just the other month, actually, that they say the first person to hit 150 years old is already alive at the moment. I'm sure that record's going to be broken pretty soon.
Yeah, probably. The oldest person in recorded history, her name is Jeanne Calment. She's from France, and I believe she lived to 124 or 123. I think it's 124. And with modern biology and technologies, there's every reason to believe that we'll exceed that very soon.
Yeah. Maybe go back, if you went to university and then run through your businesses up to Novos now.
Sure. So I studied at NYU Stern, which is the business school at New York University. I did undergrad there. I majored in finance, economics, and international business. Prior to starting at Stern, I was working at a tech startup in New York City as a programmer. So that's where I really got interested in entrepreneurship. And that combined with my experience with the brain tumor, I decided I wanted to do something entrepreneurial because I felt like that's how I can make the maximal impact on the world. And so when I graduated, I went into private equity for 1 year. I kind of got lured into the space because of all of the recruiters and all of my classmates were going into investment banking and private equity. But I lasted 1 year, literally to the day, before I quit and started my first venture out of college called Hotlist, which was a social network.
Right. Great. And tell us more about Hotlist and then any other businesses from them.
Sure. So Hotlist, I founded with a friend of mine, and we won NYU's business plan competition, which was somewhat of a surprise to us. It was a grad school competition, and we were the first undergrads to win it. And that was my calling to quit my job, which was, had a nice salary attached to it, and start my entrepreneurial journey with a $0 salary and with the expectation or vision that I would be, the next Mark Zuckerberg, so to speak. At the time, Facebook was very rapidly growing social network. This was in the earlier days. This was when Facebook evolved from being college exclusive to opening up to the general audience. And so um, little did I know how challenging the entrepreneurial journey would be. And at the time, we were entering into the Great Recession. I obviously didn't see that coming,
Yeah.
but Lehman Brothers defaulted, and we were in the process of raising a venture capital round. We had about $1 million committed. And just a couple of weeks before we were planning to accept all of those wire transfers, the banks started to default, and that round became a small fraction of it. So that was my entry into the space, but it was a long journey with Hotlist, and we had a lot of successes, and we scaled to over 200 million people's social plans. I opened NASDAQ, was on the billboards of Times Square, and so on.
Wow.
After that, I went on to start a company that I did not take external financing for. It was more of a lifestyle business called Healthy Hand that focused on delivery of healthy meals to people at their offices or at their homes in big cities like New York, based on different dietary requirements, like, for example, following a specific diet like paleo or keto, or for specific health goals like weight loss or prevention of type 2 diabetes or heart health and so on. I've worked on some other ventures in I think it would probably take too long to go through all, but the most recent one prior to Novos was actually in, of all industries, commercial real estate technology. So I built, along with a couple of other co-founders, a technology almost like an operating system for Class A commercial real estate in big cities like New York and Washington, D.C., and Los Angeles, downtown Los Angeles. Our first clients were two of the largest landlords in the world. They actually have property in Australia as well.
Was that out of interest? Was that McDonald's and the Catholic Church?
Well, they are actually, yeah, enormous landlords. Well, no, so these are specifically Brookfield is the one that has property in Australia.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, my cousin works for them, I think. Right. Yeah. Okay, that's a great start. Get the two biggest property owners in the world as clients.
Yeah, that was a nice start. Though, ultimately the space isn't one of personal passion, and it was a great opportunity, and so I took that opportunity to launch that company with a team of fantastic co-founders. But when offered the opportunity to stay on with that company and to scale it, I decided to step away from it and to start Novos, which is, as I mentioned, where my true passion rests.
Yeah, great. Well, just before we go swing back to focus on Novos, maybe just give us some context of how big the team was in each of those businesses. Just quickly, how big you got those ones, the team to?
Sure. Hotlist, we scaled to probably, is going back more than a decade now, but about 15 or so people.
Mm-hmm.
The real estate startup, we were about 12 or 13 people before we merged with a larger company, which then we started to leverage some of their resources. And then I stepped away, and they continued to scale.
Yep. Great. And so Novos, you started that 5 years ago, 2018. How old were you then?
I was 34.
34, yeah. And do you have some key numbers you can share to illustrate the growth of the business over the last 5 years?
Sure. Well, when I started it about 5 years ago, that was more on a conceptual level, networking, planning out the business, and so on. So I hadn't actually launched the business yet. We launched the business officially in 2021. So we're about 2 years in. At this point, we're about 15 FTEs,
yep.
And we grew by almost 700%. Our revenue, that is, we grew by about 700% last year.
Wow, that's phenomenal growth. Did you see? I guess you can't really tell because you launched just after COVID, but I was just wondering whether COVID had much of an impact because people reassess their health and their living standards through the pandemic.
Yeah, it's hard to say as you mentioned because we don't have the before after data. But what I would say anecdotally is definitely in the sense that people are that much more aware of their health, their mortality, how fragile life can be. They had a lot of time at home to think about these topics, and so definitely I would expect we had better growth numbers, and we resonated more with the consumer as a result of that. There was also a period in which, at least when we first started, people were still locked down to one degree or another. They weren't going out as much, they weren't traveling as much, so there was more disposable income for purchases like supplements. Less so now than there was a couple of years ago, but still people have kind of carved out a budget for health products, whereas they may not have done that prior to COVID.
Yeah. When was the moment you felt like you had succeeded?
Well, I kind of feel like we haven't, quote unquote, succeeded yet, right? Because I have very big plans and a very big vision for the business. So it's not, this is a work in progress. It's not a finished story. But I guess the first indication of success was in the very first month of launching the product. I had no idea of what we could expect in terms of sales and product market fit and how the marketplace would react to it. And in less than a month, we sold out of our entire supply that we had thought might last us, say, 6 months or so with modest sales. We
Wow.
sold out in 1 month. So, and that was the beginning of our first challenge, which was trying to restock quickly enough to accommodate the demand that was already generated from the start.
Yeah. What does success look like to you?
Success looks like to me for Novos, our grand vision is to add more than 1 billion years of life to humanity, healthy life, that is. And so as we start to approach that scale and those numbers, I think that that's the ultimate success. It's easy to talk about financials and different, business centric growth numbers, but ultimately, what is the reason for this in the first place? It is to extend healthy lifespan for people, a topic that's very personal to me because of my experiences between my brain tumor, but as well as family members who I've lost to cancer. And so ultimately that would be the real form of success and satisfaction.
Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast growing business?
I would say the number one thing would be to focus on the consumer first, be hyper focused on the consumer, listen to them and what they're telling you rather than what you think they want or what you think you need to tell them. Just keep your ear to the ground and react to that.
And how did you fund the business? So you took investment on?
Yes. Well, to start, it was self-funded, but once we needed to start scaling, I raised venture capital and brought on a number of venture capital funds and private angel investors.
If you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry?
Yes, 100%. This is considered one of the fastest growing industries and is thought to potentially become the largest industry of all time. It's going to take some years to get there, but it's a multi-trillion-dollar industry when you consider all of the different aspects of longevity, not just the supplement side and the consumer side, like we're focused on, but you include the biotech, the pharma, the care for older people, and so on. I mean, there's many different industries within this industry or sub-industries within this industry, but it's an enormous opportunity.
Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it?
Yes. Well, I would say that one of them was what I have mentioned, which is selling out a product so quickly and not being able to keep up with demand. And then in the process, at the time when we first launched, we were working with a manufacturer who was we contracted with a manufacturer who was creating our supplements for us, and they quoted us about 3 months to get the next batch complete, and they ended up taking 7 months.
Oh,
And there was a lot of tension built up with that process, and so really just thinking ahead about those types of things, right? Like thinking like, what if the best case scenario does actually play itself out? How will I respond to that? How will I be able to be agile and be able to meet the demand? Oftentimes you go into it thinking like, what's the worst case scenario, and how do I defend against that worst case scenario? But it's also helpful to go in thinking, what's the best case scenario and the quote unquote good problem? How would I actually cope with that good problem?
yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about it that way, but that is a really good exercise to do. What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
I think I'll come back to this a lot, but it's focusing on the consumer. And that goes beyond simply the marketing. It goes to the product development. So figuring out exactly what products you should be producing for the consumer, what they need, the information. So we focus heavily on content as well. And so creating content that is of value to the consumer. So making the consumer feel like they are part of an ecosystem in which they're getting more from us than simply the product that they are paying for and is being shipped to their door. They get the knowledge, the information, the community, and so on. And they're part of something bigger than just a singular product that is delivered to them.
What have you enjoyed the least about managing fast growth?
I would say probably the every so often the sleepless nights when things change so rapidly, and you have to adapt on the fly. You have to be very agile. And so on the one hand, I would say there's two sides to that coin. On the one hand, it's just very exciting, and it stimulates you, and it gives you something to look forward to. On the other hand, sometimes those things that you have to cope with are big challenges, and they keep you up at night, tossing and turning, thinking like, how am I going to cope with this? How am I going to leverage this challenge to my benefit? And ultimately, you end up getting through those challenges, and typically in a better place than when you started. And so always remembering that while going into the challenge is helpful, that you will get through it and you'll end up in a better place. But nonetheless, a challenge is a challenge, and it can bring stress.
What do you love most about growing a small business?
I think it's really just hitting all of these different milestones and thresholds. So seeing, for example, practically every single month, we outdo our previous month record in revenue. So every month it's exciting to see those numbers improving, bringing on new team members and growing the organization, and going from having had just myself and my co-founder to now basically about 15 FTEs, and seeing their faces on our Zoom calls every morning, and all of the personalities and dynamics and value that each of them contribute to the team, really just building up a powerful team, and by extension company that can cope with many different challenges and address many different needs. That's exciting too.
What has been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
Yeah. Okay. Well, so I would say biggest mindset shift, just across other business experiences that I've applied to Novos, is the idea of being lean, like an MVP type of approach to everything. So try to break down a challenge into this or a product or whatever it is you're dealing with into like the smallest pieces possible, and then work towards building that or testing it out, test out the hypothesis, collect data, and then based on that, iterate and continually improve and build it out. So rather than going from this waterfall methodology, we have this grand vision of what things should be, and then trying to perfect it and get to that and then launch it, only to find that it doesn't resonate the way that you thought it would with consumers. Instead, even if you have that vision, start with the simplest aspect of that, put it out there, see how the market responds, and then don't move on to the next step until you get a favorable reaction to it. That's something that works in technology, but it works in many other industries as well.
The number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
I would say just discipline and focusing on the big picture and the nitty gritty small picture as well. So just being involved in the day to day. That includes, for example, for me, reading tickets from customer support and seeing what customers are asking questions about or are concerned about, to looking at our finances and our KPIs, to thinking bigger picture strategy, like where do we see ourselves at the end of this month, quarter, half a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years from now, right? So kind of have to be able to cope with or comprehend and work with everything from the super granular all the way up to the most macro level of the company.
Be the change you want to see in your business. Become more productive and less stressed with our free Transform Your Performance online course. Once you see the benefits, put your entire team through the course at no cost. We start out by telling you the secret to guaranteed success, then over 100 lessons help you be more focused, present, productive, and feel more in control about work. growasmallbusiness.com.
Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes, and advice for those listening?
Yeah, I would say something that we had to cope with, and it's very important that entrepreneurs consider this from the start, is company culture. I would say putting culture first. You can bring on somebody who is the best at a specific discipline or is brilliant and very capable, but if their culture isn't aligned in terms of work culture, expectations, so on and so forth, then it's going to be a very tense, difficult work environment. So you want to make sure that everyone is on the same page in terms of expectations of how to treat each other, how much work to be doing, what to be contributing, their role in the company, and relative to everyone else, and so on. And I think that having humble people who are willing to learn, people who even if they are confident in themselves, they know that they have, their flaws, so to speak. All of these things are important that we look for in team members that join Novos.
And what are some things you recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
I think that some of the things I just mentioned contribute to it, but I would say also I would say that we overall have a empathic culture, like one in which we listen to everyone. We hear where they're coming from. That doesn't excuse people from not, fulfilling their duties, but it is one in which people feel like they're heard, and that they that the organization and the team members will respond to their requests and their needs and so on, while at the same time expecting the highest level of performance and to be, best in class for what we are putting out there.
And tell our audience how you've handled balance.
Work-life balance, I can probably improve with. I don't know. I mean, you hear people like Elon Musk, who he says that he works 363 out of 365 days in the year, right? And that is on the one hand extreme. On the other hand, as an entrepreneur myself who is passionate about my work, it is like it's so much a part of me and what I enjoy doing that when I tell friends and family that I'm working on a weekend, they might say like, why are you working? You should live a little. But for me, that is living. Like I enjoy it so much. I'm creating, I'm building. So the conventional definition of work-life balance, I think I'm going a little too far on the work side of things, but for me personally, it's actually something that I find to be right in the sweet spot, and I feel happy and healthy with it. I do make sure that I exercise every day. So every morning I start my day with a walk. Every evening I end my day with a walk, and I go to the gym or go do cardio 6 out of 7 days in the week. And I spend a good amount of time with my girlfriend, and I have my dog all day long to keep me company. So, I do balance it, but not by the conventional definition of balance.
Yep. Yeah, I've got my chocolate Labrador behind me snoring on the couch.
Yeah, I have a rough collie, but just like Lassie, but I put her in the other room because she might start barking in here.
Yeah, that's good. They get you out of the house, don't they, every day? Mm.
Yep.
How much professional development have you invested in yourself?
I would say so in terms of like formal training, not that much. Of course, I went to NYU Stern. I studied business. I became an entrepreneur and have been one for almost 20 years now. So got a lot through that. But I would say that the best way to really develop that has been combination of just the people I've surrounded myself with. So whether it be friends of mine who are entrepreneurs themselves, or my investors, both angels who oftentimes are successful entrepreneurs, or venture capitalists who are sometimes successful entrepreneurs. Otherwise, they're great capital allocators and can really help me think through the financial side of the business. To podcasts, which I'm a huge fan of. And those podcasts can range from my industry specifically to business as well, and venture capital and so on. So it's really just, there's no like specific plan, but just surrounding myself with the right people and then seeking out content that can really enrich that has been the best way, I think, for me.
So it sounds like you've had a few mentors along the way. Have you had coaches?
I have had for a short period a business coach. I haven't really derived as much out of that as I would have hoped. I think that for me, I learn best from just direct firsthand experience, like going through the experience and then having the right people who I can like bounce ideas off of or get their perspectives. So, that would be quote unquote mentors who oftentimes though just happen to be friends of mine or investors or and so on. That I find to be the best way for me to be able to succeed.
And assume you've got a board of directors or advisors because you've got investors in.
Yes. So our board of advisors, I have it on both the scientific and medical side. So we have scientists from Harvard, the MIT, Salk Institute, UCLA, and so on. And then on the business side, yes, as I mentioned, so these are like venture capitalists and seasoned entrepreneurs.
So how often does the board meet?
Well, at this stage, I'm the sole board member in terms of board of directors, board of advisors. For me, it's not a formal meeting. It's kind of like a ad hoc as needed basis. So we're a seed stage company. Once we hit Series A, then we'll bring additional board members into the company.
Yeah, got it. Now, Chris, you're one of the few we've had on that's exited a business. You've exited a couple. Got any advice for our audience that are thinking about exiting one day? Anything you do differently there?
Yeah, well, I would say try to bring multiple companies into the fold for the acquisition. So try to build up a bidding process, right, and get solicit interest from multiple parties. I'd say also think from the start about the acquisition, like what your ideal acquisition would be, who your ideal acquirers might be, and what it is that they are looking for when they're acquiring a company. Like everything from the product line that you sell, the simplicity or complexity of it, like in terms of sourcing and procuring and operations and so on, that all comes into play. The customer base you have, like the age, for example, if you have customers who are in their 20s, that's far more desirable than customers in their 50s. Even though people in their 50s have more disposable income, people in their 20s have much longer lifetimes and lifetime value, right? So there's all of these different considerations that you should look into, and then think about if there are ways to tweak your business without making large sacrifices to the business, right? You should stay true to what your vision is for that business, but by being mindful of what the acquirers might be looking for, there might be some decisions that are net neutral, but will ultimately work out to your benefit when it comes time for an acquisition.
Right, Chris, we're on our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
I would say the hardest thing in a small business is, at least at the start, is competition, the competitive environment, right? So if you're small, you have probably found a new opportunity, and if that opportunity is lucrative enough, then there will be others who are entering that space as well and trying to outcompete you. So you need to be fast on your feet. You need to be very strategic. You need to think about how you can outpace them, outgrow them, and ultimately be number one in the space. Because as we see in business and we see throughout the world, throughout nature, the largest player eats up a large percentage of the market share. And so you want to do everything you can to be that number one player in the space. And you'll also be the most desirable from the acquirer's perspectives as well, back to the previous question. So everything you can to be quick, nimble, and outcompete everyone.
Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
I don't know if there's one specific one. I'd say a couple of books that I like are, as I mentioned or alluded to earlier, The Lean Startup is a great book. What else? Forgetting the name of it. Blue Ocean.
Blue Ocean Strategy.
Blue Ocean Strategy is another great book.
Yeah, I've just started that. I can't believe I haven't read it. Everyone keeps telling me about it. Yeah.
Yeah, those are the first 2 that come to mind.
Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
There's not one single specific podcast, but I would say just in general podcasts. Sometimes it comes down to just searching by specific keywords of like a topic or an issue that you're dealing with, and then looking for highly rated podcasts that have covered that topic. Or sometimes it's some venture capitalists have some powerful podcasts, and there are other business strategy podcasts. So listening to those, and oftentimes just almost the case study method, right? Like hearing other entrepreneurs and how they've coped with issues. Oftentimes that's helpful to then spark your creativity for how you'll cope with a similar issue.
One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
Yeah, okay. I would say CRM is fantastic. Like if you can build up your database of customers and prospects, and you can then deliver really value add content to those people, you can really derive a lot of growth and revenue from the CRM.
Final and my favorite question: what would you tell yourself on day one of starting out?
I would say that this is a journey. It's not a race, and there will be many chapters in this journey, and to just take it a day at a time. The best way to actually succeed is to not think ahead of all of the challenges and the stressors that might come to you. Just, each day get in front of your computer or on the road, whatever it is you need to do, and just deal with each challenge as it comes in that day. And as long as you're doing that day in and day out, then you'll be in a great place when you look back over the last 6 months and 6 years and so on.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Chris. I really enjoyed our chat. Congratulations on the growth. You and your co-founder taking the team to about 15 now. Recently, 700% growth is phenomenal, and selling out in your first month. That is, wonderful growth. So congratulations to you both and the team.
Thank you, Troy. It was great to be here.
That's it. Thanks for listening. Please leave a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. It means more small business owners will find our cast and help people with their business growth journey.